Some people believe the deepest wounds come from strangers. They don't. The deepest wounds come from the people you've spent years loving without asking for anything in return. I learned that lesson on an ordinary Sunday afternoon. One careless sentence from my daughter-in-law shattered years of quiet sacrifices, and what happened next changed our family forever. My name is Henry Carter. I'm 68 years old, and after spending 42 years as a high school history teacher, I retired believing I'd earned a peaceful life. Teaching was never about the paycheck. It was about helping young people believe they could build a better future. My late wife, Linda, used to tell me that I cared more about my students than I cared about myself. She wasn't wrong. When she passed away after a long illness 8 years ago, my world became much smaller. Thankfully, our only son, Ethan, remained close. He visited every weekend. We shared coffee almost every Saturday morning. When he introduced me to Emily, I was genuinely happy. She was bright, ambitious, and confident. I welcomed her into the family without hesitation. I even helped them buy their first home by covering most of the down payment. I never mentioned it again. Parents don't keep receipts. The first year of their marriage was wonderful. Then little things began changing. Emily preferred expensive restaurants, luxury vacations, designer furniture. None of those things bothered me. What bothered me was how embarrassed she seemed by my simple life. I still drove my 15-year-old pickup. I still lived in the same modest house Linda and I had purchased decades earlier. I still fixed things instead of replacing them. Emily often laughed and called me old school. I smiled every time. I thought she was joking. Looking back, I don't think she was. One Friday afternoon, Ethan called. "Dad, Emily's mother is visiting this weekend." "That's nice. We're having lunch on Sunday. I'd love for you to come." I happily accepted. Family meals were becoming less frequent. I wasn't about to miss one. Sunday arrived. Emily had prepared an impressive lunch. The dining room looked beautiful. Fresh flowers decorated the table. Everything smelled wonderful. Her mother, Patricia, greeted me politely. She was elegant, well-dressed, very confident. We shook hands warmly. Lunch began pleasantly enough. We talked about travel, weather, the grandchildren. Then Patricia admired Ethan's house. "It's beautiful." Emily smiled proudly. "We've worked very hard for it." I quietly nodded. She wasn't wrong. They had worked hard. But I also remembered the day I handed them the check for the down payment. I had never expected recognition, only honesty. Then Patricia looked at me. "So, Henry, did you ever think about moving into a retirement community?" I smiled. "I'm perfectly happy where I am." Emily laughed softly. "Oh, Henry hates spending money." Everyone chuckled politely. I did too. Then she added another sentence, the one that changed everything. "Honestly, if it weren't for Ethan, I think Henry would still be living like it's 1985. The room became awkwardly quiet. Patricia laughed. Emily laughed. Even Ethan forced a nervous smile. I didn't. Emily wasn't finished. She looked at her mother and casually said, "Sometimes I feel like I'm raising 2 generations instead of 1. The words hit harder than she probably intended. She wasn't teasing me anymore. She was belittling me. In front of her own mother. I looked at Ethan. He lowered his eyes. He said nothing. That silence hurt even more than Emily's words. I slowly placed my fork on the table, smiled politely, and said something no one expected. "Emily, I owe you an apology." She looked surprised. "For what?" "For making you believe that living with dignity is something to be ashamed of." The smile disappeared from her face. The room fell completely silent. I calmly stood from my chair, picked up my jacket, looked once at my son, then quietly walked toward the front door. Just before I reached it, a voice behind me said, "Henry, it wasn't my son. It wasn't Emily. It was Patricia." And the next words out of her mouth stopped everyone in the house. I stopped with my hand on the front door. Patricia's voice was calm. "Henry, please don't leave." I slowly turned around. Emily looked confused. So did Ethan. Patricia stood up from her chair and looked directly at her daughter. "Did you really just say those things to your father-in-law?" Emily shrugged awkwardly. "Mom, I was only joking." Patricia's expression hardened. "No, you weren't. I know the difference." The room became painfully quiet. Emily forced a smile. "You're taking this too seriously." Patricia slowly shook her head. "No, Emily, I think you haven't been taking it seriously enough." She turned toward me. "Henry, would you mind sitting down for just a few more minutes?" Out of respect for her, I returned to my seat. Patricia remained standing. Then she looked at Ethan. Did your father help you buy this house? Ethan hesitated. Yes. Who paid the down payment? My father. Who helped pay for your college? He did. And your wedding? Ethan lowered his head. He helped with that too. Patricia nodded slowly. Then she faced Emily again. So the man you've been making fun of is the same man who made this life possible. Emily's face began turning red. Mom, that's not fair. No, Patricia replied. What's not fair is forgetting who helped you stand. Emily crossed her arms. You always take other people's side. Patricia sighed. I'm taking the side of respect. She looked around the room before continuing. When your father was alive, we had very little money. Emily looked away. You remember those years? We couldn't afford vacations. We couldn't afford new furniture. We repaired everything. We counted every dollar. Her voice softened. The happiest years of our lives happened before we had money. I quietly listened, she continued. When I walked into Henry's home today, I saw something you haven't noticed. Emily frowned. What? I saw peace. She pointed toward me. He isn't poor. He isn't miserable. He simply refuses to measure success the way you do. Nobody spoke. Then Patricia looked directly into Emily's eyes. You embarrass the only person at this table who never asked for recognition. Those words hit even harder than mine had. Emily's confidence disappeared. She looked toward Ethan, expecting support. Instead, he finally spoke. Mom's right. Emily stared at him. What? My dad deserved better. Her face fell. You agree with this? He nodded slowly. I should have said something the moment you started making fun of him. He looked at me. I'm sorry, Dad. I stayed quiet because I wanted to avoid conflict. But my silence made things worse. I smiled sadly. Silence often does. Emily suddenly stood up. So now everyone thinks I'm the villain? No, I answered calmly. I think everyone believes you made a mistake. She grabbed her purse. I don't need to be judged. She walked toward the hallway. Before reaching the door, Patricia quietly called her name. Emily. She stopped without turning around. Patricia's voice was gentle now. When did you become so afraid of looking ordinary? Emily remained frozen. You weren't raised this way. No answer. You used to thank people. You used to admire kindness. You used to cry when someone else was hurting. Patricia paused. I don't know when money became more important than character. Emily's shoulders began shaking. Very slowly, she turned around. There were tears in her eyes. She couldn't finish the sentence. Patricia walked over and gently held her hand. You've been trying so hard to impress everyone. Emily finally broke down. I grew up watching people judge us because we didn't have enough. I promised myself that would never happen again. Tears rolled down her cheeks. So I kept buying, decorating, comparing. I thought if our life looked perfect, people would finally respect us. The room was silent. I understood something in that moment. Emily hadn't been trying to hurt me because she hated me. She'd been trying to hide her own insecurities. Unfortunately, she had used me to do it. She slowly walked toward me. I'm sorry, Henry. I know those words aren't enough. They aren't, I answered honestly. She nodded. I know. I don't expect you to forgive me today. Before I could respond, Ethan reached into a kitchen drawer and pulled out a folder. Dad, I was actually planning to give you this after lunch. What is it? He handed it to me. Inside were architectural drawings, permits, and a handwritten letter. We've been planning to renovate your house. I looked at him in surprise. So it would be easier for you as you get older. Emily wiped away her tears. It was supposed to be a surprise. I wanted to thank you for everything you've done for us. She looked down. And somehow, I ruined the day before I ever got the chance. I closed the folder quietly, then looked at both of them. I don't need a bigger house. They looked confused. I need something much more valuable. What? I smiled gently. Respect. Neither of them could answer, but I could already see they finally understood. And before the day was over, Emily would make a decision that would change our family forever. The room remained silent after I said one word. Respect. No one argued. No one tried to explain it away. Because everyone knew that was the one thing money could never buy. Emily slowly sat back down. She looked emotionally exhausted. I've spent years trying to build the perfect life, she whispered. But somewhere along the way, I forgot how to be a good person. Patricia gently squeezed her daughter's hand. The good news, she said softly, is that you've realized it before it was too late. Emily looked at me. I know I can't erase what I said. No, I answered honestly. You can't. She nodded. but I want to spend whatever time it takes earning back your trust." I appreciated that she didn't ask for immediate forgiveness. Real change doesn't begin with excuses. It begins with accountability. A week passed, then another. I didn't hear much from Ethan or Emily. Part of me wondered if that uncomfortable Sunday lunch had driven us even further apart. Then, one Saturday morning, my doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I found Emily standing there alone. She wasn't dressed the way she usually was. No designer handbag, no expensive jewelry, no perfect makeup. Just jeans, a sweater, and nervous eyes. "May I come in?" I stepped aside. She looked around my modest little house. For the first time, she wasn't judging it. She was actually seeing it. Her eyes paused on dozens of framed family photographs. Pictures of Ethan growing up, school graduations, camping trips, Christmas mornings. My late wife, Linda, smiling beside me. Emily slowly walked toward one photo. "I've never seen this one. It was taken the day Ethan learned to ride a bicycle." She smiled. "You kept everything." "I kept the moments that mattered." She lowered her head. "I think I've spent too much time collecting things instead of memories." She handed me a small envelope. "I don't want you to open it until after I leave." I accepted it. Then we spent nearly 2 hours talking. Not arguing, talking. She admitted how social media had slowly changed her thinking. Every vacation posted online, every luxury home, every expensive car. She constantly compared her life to everyone else's. Eventually, simple things started embarrassing her, including me. I thought success meant looking successful. I smiled. "Real success is sleeping peacefully at night." She quietly laughed through tears. "I finally understand that." When she left, I opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. It wasn't long, just one paragraph. "Henry, thank you for loving me like family, even when I forgot how to treat you like one. I promise that from this day forward, I'll never make someone feel small just to make myself feel bigger." I folded the letter carefully and placed it beside Linda's photograph. Months passed. Slowly, our family changed. Sunday dinners returned, not because anyone felt obligated, because everyone actually wanted to be there. Emily changed too. She volunteered at a local community center. She stopped trying to impress strangers. She started spending more time with family than shopping. Even Patricia noticed. One afternoon, she smiled at me and quietly said, "I have my daughter back." Nearly a year later, Ethan and Emily invited the whole family to celebrate their wedding anniversary. As everyone gathered around the dining table, Emily stood up with a glass in her hand. "I'd like to say something." The room became quiet. She looked directly at me. "A year ago, I embarrassed the man who has done more for our family than anyone else." Her voice trembled. "I confused kindness with weakness. I confused simplicity with failure." She walked over and placed a framed photograph in front of me. It was the picture from Ethan's childhood, the one of him learning to ride his bicycle. But this time it had been beautifully restored. Across the bottom was a small engraved message. "The richest man in our family was never the one with the biggest house, but the one with the biggest heart." I couldn't hold back my tears. Emily hugged me tightly. "I'm proud to call you my father-in-law." The room filled with applause. Even Patricia wiped away tears. I looked around the table. Everyone was smiling, not because anyone had become richer, but because we had finally learned what truly mattered. People often spend their lives chasing bigger homes, more expensive cars, better clothes. But those things are forgotten. The way you make people feel, that stays with them forever. My daughter-in-law once humiliated me in front of her mother. She thought my simple life made me less valuable. In the end, she discovered that dignity, kindness, and respect are worth far more than anything money can buy. And that became the greatest lesson our entire family ever learned.